Hello everyone and welcome to a breaking news update. Rangers have announced that Barry Ferguson has left his job as Rangers head coach and at the end of a 3-month contract. The statement reads, "Everyone at Rangers Football Club would like to pass on their heartfelt thanks to Barry Ferguson and his staff, with yesterday's game at Hibernian being their final match in charge. Club legend Ferguson answered the call in the club's hour of need back in February and has overseen several memorable moments during his time in charge, not least progression to the quarter-finals of the UEFA Europa League and a terrific victory at Parkhead. A Hall of Fame member, Ferguson will now leave this role along with Neil McCann, Billy Dodds and Alan McGregor, with enormous gratitude and best wishes at everyone at Ibrox for their efforts in the past few months." CEO Patrick Stewart commented, "The club, and I am sure all our supporters, will be forever grateful to Barry for stepping up and taking on the role of head coach. He and his staff have performed admirably among some trying circumstances and achieved some excellent results along the way. Barry, Neil, Billy and Alan all had distinguished playing careers with Rangers and they have all enhanced their standing with the club for their work since February. The reception they received at Ibrox on Wednesday night was fully merited and I know it meant so much to Barry and his team. The search for our new head coach is progressing well and we look forward to concluding our process in the coming period." Outgoing head coach Barry Ferguson added, "I've already lived the dream as a player and captain of Rangers, and to do so as head coach these last 3 months has been an enormous honour for me. There have been some ups and downs, but I've loved this experience and given it my all throughout. I want to thank Neil, Billy and Alan, the 3 staff members who came in with me, and all the other staff who supported me during my time in charge. Indeed, from everyone at the training camp in Ibrox, the backing I received has been phenomenal. Above all, I want to thank our supporters. There is no doubt this has been a difficult season, but the backing the team and I continue to receive in spite of that has been incredible. I have said no matter how the period panned out, I would remain a committed supporter of the club and I look forward to remaining a Rangers ambassador. I wish whomever becomes a new manager every success in the job." Joining me then to discuss this news is, first of all, James Forrest.
Afternoon, David. Afternoon, everyone.
And second of all, Ross Hutton.
How are we doing, everyone?
James, it's not a surprise. And I know that it's been something that the media, the traditional media, have to say more than the likes of fan media. Well, I don't recall one question from us about it. They've been going on about, should Barry remain in the job? You know, what are your thoughts on it? But I think it's been clear for a number of months that he would be leaving. And the speed with which the club have announced this, just 24 hours after the last game, suggests they are getting closer to finding a new person.
Potentially. I think a lot of the noise around questions over whether he's going to be the long-term answer, that was very much a media-driven thing. When he came in, it was very clear that he was talking about, this is just for the 3 months. We're not thinking about anything beyond that. And, you know, what are you supposed to do in that scenario where you're constantly getting asked the same sort of questions? I understand why the responses that he was given as time went on were the case, because what else are you supposed to do? Just keep saying, no, I'm not interested. No, it's not about that. I'm glad the club have done this today. I'm glad they've turned around and kind of put an end to any of that sort of chat, because it's clear that we need a new direction. We need someone that has that coaching experience at the top level, whomever that may be. But the overriding emotion right now is just very thankful, not only to Barry Ferguson, but to also Neil McCann, Alan McGregor and Billy Dodds. When we were at a really, really low ebb and we needed someone just to step in that interim, they stepped up. And yeah, it wasn't great, it wasn't perfect, but they carried us forward for the rest of what was a really difficult campaign, and I'm really grateful to them for that.
Ross, your immediate thoughts?
Yeah, I would echo a lot of what James said there. I think maybe throughout Barry Ferguson's time as the head coach, he maybe did get a wee bit of Potomac fever, and he was trying to talk himself up for the job more and more, particularly as those press conferences went on during his time. But I think James kind of hit the nail on the head, and you yourself, when you're constantly being asked those kind of questions, then yeah, of course you do kind of need to back yourself in those situations. I don't blame him for that at all. I think if you're Barry Ferguson and you were sitting there as head coach, you probably would be thinking, listen, this is my one and only realistic chance of actually landing the Rangers job full time. So of course you're going to say and do whatever you can to actually try and put yourself in the frame for that. But I think, like James, my overriding emotion is a lot of gratitude. Is maybe easy to forget just how bad a place we were in just a few months ago when Clement obviously left the building, the dire situation we found ourselves in, obviously losing at Queen's Park, that awful result against St a couple of weeks after as well. We as fans needed a lift, and I know Barry Ferguson can divide the fan base a wee bit in the modern era, but he is a figure that people can look to and get behind, and that's what we needed in those moments. We didn't need a tactician, we didn't need somebody to come in and just kind of see us through. We needed somebody who actually galvanises a wee bit towards the end of the season. And Barry got some incredible results I don't think any of us really thought he might achieve. He won at Parkhead, that's a great achievement. He got past the Jose Mourinho side in Europe, that's a fantastic achievement. And like the club said, I do think everyone involved in the coaching staff has probably, to some degree or another, enhanced their reputation with the Rangers support. So I think I just completely echo what James said there. I'm grateful for their efforts. I don't think the efforts were good enough to land them the job on a full-time basis. But given what it was, given it was only for 3 months and taking that in isolation, I'm grateful for them for stepping up.
James, we started off, we'll go into more detail on other shows, but we started off Barry's tenure with that 4-2 comeback victory at Kilmarnock when it was quite clear really where the issues lay, the opening half an hour. Then lost his first home match to Motherwell, lost by 2-1. Then went to Parkhead and beat Celtic 3-2, our first win at Parkhead in 5 years. Then that amazing game at Dundee that Rangers edged out 4-3 before another home defeat, this time to Hibs. And then we went into a series of draws. We drew with Aberdeen away, again a comeback draw with 10 men. Then we drew with St Mirren in Paisley, drew with Celtic at Ibrox before 2 wins and rounding off yesterday with a draw. It hasn't been easy for Barry because, as we know, the squad has lacked quality all season, no matter who the manager is. But as I think, realistically, as Ross said, he probably had to win nearly all of those. I would kind of suggest all of those matches to be in the frame.
Yeah, what would it have taken for Barry Ferguson to have been a serious candidate? I wonder whether it would have had to go as far as a title win or a Europa League win, because the CV up to that point...
Well, he couldn't have won the title.
No, but, that's what I mean in terms of there was no realistic scenario, in my opinion, that would have led him to being the person that would have taken over on a full-time basis. I just didn't see it. I was at that Kilmarnock game, that first game, and obviously off the back of the horror run that we were on at that time, you expect to go to those sorts of games and the atmosphere be really low, but there was a bit of a lift. The support did get a bit of a lift from the fact that we had this legend and legendary figures back in the club and trying to help us out, and that did help. And it was, I remember that awful start, but then he was doing things that we wouldn't have got from Clement in terms of trying to change things up, and those changes did work. There have been one or two things that have got better for sure since he came in from the previous manager, but a lot of the issues that we're talking about, they are to do with the players. The players have been the biggest issue, and the key thing that the board had to do when they got rid of Clement, it was absolutely right to do a short-term thing, and whoever you brought in, it would be someone that no matter how bad things got, their reputation with the fan base wasn't going to be sullied. They were still going to be a legend, and then all that pressure had to go on the playing squad, which for years has just not been good enough. So it was the right decision and the right person to come in that moment.
Ross, I think that in terms of the Rangers support, James just mentioned there that he has a legendary status that, if anything, I think it will be enhanced by this. In time, you forget, the bad results, the home defeats, the performances, and you remember the highlights. That's just natural. And there were two in particular. The first one, an absolutely superb European away performance in Turkey, where Barry switched to a 3-5-2, which nobody was expecting, least of all Fenerbahce. And Rangers won 3-1, 2 offside, missed a few other. I mean, we could have won that game 6 or 7-1, and it wouldn't have been an unfair scoreline. Nervy night back at Ibrox, but overcoming Fenerbahce in that penalty shootout. And the other, of course, was the Celtic game where, and I do think he deserves a credit for this, for the first time in years, Rangers went there and didn't look as though they were scared to be on the same pitch.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. And I think probably the highest compliment you can pay Barry and his staff is that they did actually give us something to smile about and be proud of in this Rangers team in a couple of moments, least of all that result against Fenerbahce and Celtic, like you said. Whatever way you carve it up, Barry Ferguson's tenure as Rangers manager, you can't take those moments away from him. Now, what he does with the rest of his career, if he does want to go back into management, I don't know. But those are moments that will live with him, and he absolutely deserves that because he deserves immense credit for both of those results. I think, like the two of you said, he would have had to have gone that and then some to actually land the job. But I go back to what I said at the start. We were in such a dark place when he took over. I mean, when was the last time Clement, no disrespect, maybe when was the last time he made us smile in the dugout? We didn't have moments like that. We didn't have results like that. We were in a really, really bad place. So just being able to get those players up to go to Parkhead and not have any fear of this Celtic side was an achievement, given the results and tankings that members of that squad have taken there over the past 5 years. And then, again, whatever way you want to carve it up, for Barry Ferguson to get past the Jose Mourinho side in Europe is a tremendous achievement, an absolutely tremendous achievement. And looking back, I think, like you said, we'll remember those results fondly. It's the kind of results that will come back up on archive footage in a few years and go, oh, what a night that was. But the feeling that gave us, just that chance to actually be proud of a Rangers team again, if only for a night, if only for a moment, is something that I really, really welcomed, because it was really, really bad when he joined, really, really dark, and people were starting to fade away. People might have just chucked it for the rest of the season if we've got a nobody back in that they couldn't believe in. But he did manage to actually squeeze something out of that squad, and he does deserve credit for that.
James, interesting there, the list of names leaving the club did not mention Issam Shirai, who, of course, was retained by the club not long after arriving. It does appear that he's someone that the club have got a bit of faith in.
Looks like it, yeah. I think that was certainly the shout. When he joined, it was an appointment that was made by the club rather than an appointment from Philippe Clement himself. So, you know, there was the link at the time with Hamza Egeman when he joined, because I think they'd worked together at Moroccan youth level previous. So I guess that's something that, you know, he will be retained. He'll be a part of that. I'd be lying if I said I knew the ins and out of what impact he has had in terms of the stuff that we have been doing well. But if he's been part of that uplift in the form of someone like Nico Raskin, for example, which I think has been one of the highlights of Barry Ferguson's tenure in terms of the way that Raskin has just, you know, leaped on in terms of his ability that we're seeing on the park on a consistent basis, then that's potentially quite a promising thing. So it sounds as though whoever it is that does come in as the new permanent head coach will already have a staff member in place in terms of Issam Shirai, and it'll be interesting in terms of how people feel about that, because I wonder whether there's going to be some people who think it just needs to be a totally clean break, and, you know, someone that's been involved in the things that were going so badly before, it really doesn't make sense. But it's someone that the club believes in terms of his ability to do that job in terms of being a coach. So by the looks of it, yeah, he's going to be part of that new setup, whatever it may be.
Ross, what are you looking for in a new manager? What type of manager do you think Rangers need, if a manager at all? Because it does look as though we're going to go down the head coach route, which will be someone who does not get overly involved in terms of identification of players. He'll have a say, does not really get involved too much in the youth thing. Everyone has a separate job overseen by, in this case, Kevin Thelwell. It seems that they're going to go that rather than what we might consider a more traditional manager position.
What am I looking for? First and foremost, somebody who can be successful, obviously, but how do we get there? I think a few of the names that we've been linked with so far, Davide Angelotti obviously being the big one, but even the likes of Rob Edwards as well, there seems to be a profile of young coaches in there, young coaches with ideas, young coaches that have coached at a good level. Don't think any of the names that have been linked so far have been perfect, but that's just the position that we find ourselves in. I want somebody to come in who doesn't have fear, and what I mean by that is somebody who's not going to get overawed by the job, because it's very easy to do that. That job does mental things to folk, and they become very conservative in it, and they maybe revert to a type of tactic that they wouldn't maybe have thought of coming in. I want people to come in with a clear belief and style of system of playing football. is obviously suited for Rangers and their own particular domestic challenges, and who will implement that right throughout the club, and most importantly, stick to it, because there's going to be bumps in the road next season. It's not going to be easy. Trying to rebuild a squad and the volume of rebuild that we have over the summer is maybe impossible to do in one window. So when there is a bump in the road, I don't want the manager to throw the baby out with the bathwater. They need to have cool heads, and they need to be able to stick with their philosophy and really kind of believe in themselves. I think maybe we as fans and we as a club need to give them the space to do that, just give them the scale of the job they have in their hands. But a young, exciting coach, that doesn't mean a project, but a young, exciting coach who isn't overawed by the job, but appreciates what Rangers is, what Rangers are, and what Rangers always will be. That's exactly what I'm looking for, because I think if we get that right, and the club functions like a normal functioning football club with a good recruitment department, proper scouting, a good level of interchangeable kind of functionality throughout it, then we will be in a much, much better place come next May than what we are having this conversation now.
Same question to you, James.
I guess over and above everything that Ross has said there, which is absolutely right, someone who has a clear alignment with the decision makers such as Kevin Thelwell, everyone in the kind of sporting directorial department, someone who is completely aligned in terms of the vision, the idea, because everyone needs to be on the same page. Everyone needs to have that same vision for how we get to where we want to be, which is being successful in the domestic sense first and foremost, and retaining that strong record that we have had in Europe. If they have that very clear vision of how we get there, whoever the coach may be, so long as they totally get it and totally get what that involves, and however long that takes, then that is for me the most important thing, because we've had this over the last few years where there's just not been that same synergy, where different opinions, too many cooks in the kitchen almost. But this is now a clean break, and this is an opportunity to get this right and get this done proper. Just ultimately getting our shit together, which there is no obvious outstanding candidate, I don't think, because I think a lot of names will be in the frame, and a lot of the names that have been talked about right now, there's going to be enough people that can poke holes in the ideas, etc. But yeah, just have that same alignment with the likes of Kevin Thelwell and potentially Niels Coppen if he's still going to be there, and move forward as one ultimately.
And then, lads, just basically any final thoughts before we close the chapter on Barry Ferguson as manager of Rangers?
I think it's not just closing the chapter on Barry Ferguson's manager of Rangers, it's probably closing the chapter on this era of Rangers, which obviously Barry had the kind of final chapter of. It does feel like a big summer. It feels exciting as a fan, obviously, with this takeover, and hopefully we get more news on that soon. A new manager, new squad. That is exciting as a fan, and they are starting from a low base, so I think we do have a right to be optimistic about it. But I think it just kind of closes off, really, really closes off that final chapter of what has been a horrendous era of Rangers. And I think all we can do as fans over the summer is back the new manager, whoever he is, and back the new owners when they come in, and then it's full steam ahead for next season. Wish Barry and the rest of the staff well. As I said, I'm eternally grateful for them for stepping up when they didn't need to touch that job and we were in such a bad place. They've gave us some fantastic moments. That's about as best as you could have asked for them in that regard. And yeah, I'm looking forward to a bit of summer with optimism, which will be a pleasant change.
Yeah, exactly what Ross said. Nothing more to say other than just repeating the thanks for Barry, Neil, Billy, and Alan for doing what they did. And yeah, that's that page turned. That's that book closed. It's a whole new start now, and one that if the noises that are coming out in terms of what people have said regarding what the 49ers group and Andrew Kavanagh, what they want to invest in, if that chat is to be realised, then it is going to be a potentially very exciting era for us now. But that's only going to be the case if we are successful. So, they better make sure they get it done right.
Yeah, I would just echo the boys there. I think that no one, when Barry came in, was expecting him to be the next iteration of Rinus Michels. I don't think that was anybody's expectation. We all realised what he was up against in terms of his squad. There were some bad days, but there were also some good ones. And as I say, he leaves us with some good memories. But most importantly, I thought in his entire time with us, he conducted himself the way that a Rangers manager should conduct himself. And he brought back some standards that had been missing, particularly, as I say, in those Old Firm matches. So all the best to him in the future and to his coaching staff. Right, my thanks today for joining me at short notice to Ross.
No, thank you very much, mate.
And to James.
Pleasure, David.
And we'll have more on this tomorrow. So enjoy the rest of your Sunday night, folks, and we'll speak to you again soon.